Private Tom Delaney had cleared 47 Viet Cong tunnels in 6 months, making him the best tunnel rat in Charlie Company. On April 12, 1968, 20 feet underground in Cu Chi, the earth swallowed him whole. A B-52 strike collapsed the passage, trapping him in pitch darkness, barely wider than his shoulders. No radio, no light. Air so thin each breath burned his lungs. The rope connecting him to the surface had snapped. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Tom's first thought in the absolute darkness was simple and primal. Breathe. His second thought was that breathing might kill him. The air tasted wrong, thick with pulverized earth that coated his throat with every inhalation. He coughed violently, which only pulled more dust into his lungs. His chest seized, panic rising like floodwater. Stop. Count. His father's voice from 20 years ago, teaching a scared kid how to handle the dark basement. Count something. Anything. 1 breath in, hold. 2 breaths out. 3 breaths in. The counting gave his mind something to grip besides terror. Tom forced himself still, listening past his own ragged breathing. The settling earth made tiny sounds, clicks and whispers of soil finding new positions. Each sound could mean another collapse coming, or it could mean nothing. He had no way to know. His hands moved carefully in the darkness, mapping the space around him. 18 inches to his left before hitting solid earth. Maybe 20 inches to his right. Above his head, dirt pressed against his helmet. He was lying on his stomach in what felt like a coffin made of clay. The helmet. Tom reached up slowly, fingers finding the familiar shape. The chin strap had broken during the collapse, but the helmet itself was intact. Small victory. He pulled it off and set it beside him, needing the extra inch of clearance it provided. His right hand found his pistol still holstered at his hip. The .45 felt solid, real, something from the world above where things made sense. Not that it would help him dig out of here. He left it holstered. The knife strapped to his left calf was there too, and in his right pocket, he felt the lighter Kowalski had loaned him yesterday. "Bring it back, Mole," Kowalski had said, grinning. "It's my lucky one." Tom almost laughed. Almost. The sound came out as a choked gasp instead. Think. He had to think. The tunnel had been running roughly northeast when it collapsed. He'd been 20 feet in from the entrance, maybe 15 feet down from the surface. The passage had been narrow but stable, showing none of the usual signs of weakness. Then the world had simply caved in. Now he had choices, and all of them were bad. Try to dig back toward the entrance, where his platoon might be attempting rescue. Try to dig forward, deeper into the tunnel system, hoping to find an air pocket or another passage. Or stay here and conserve oxygen, praying someone would reach him before the air ran out. Tom shifted slightly, testing whether he could move at all. His legs responded, boots scraping against packed earth. His arms had maybe 8 inches of movement forward. Not much, but enough to dig. Barely. The darkness pressed against his eyeballs like a physical weight. He'd been in dark tunnels before, dozens of them, but always with a flashlight, always with the knowledge that light was just a switch away. This darkness was different, complete, absolute. The kind of darkness that made you forget what light even looked like. He had to move. Staying here meant dying here. Tom began to dig. His fingers clawed at the earth ahead, pulling dirt back past his body in handfuls. The soil was dense, compacted by the collapse. Nothing like the loose fill he'd hoped for. Each handful required effort, his fingernails scraping against clay and small rocks. After what felt like an hour but was probably 10 minutes, Tom had advanced maybe 3 inches. 3 inches. His breathing was getting harder. Not panic this time, but simple physics. He was using oxygen faster than the buried air could replenish itself, if there even was replenishment. He might be trapped in a sealed pocket, breathing the same air over and over until it turned to poison. Don't think about that. Dig. Tom's right hand hit something solid. Wood. He traced it with his fingers, recognizing the shape. A support beam, one of the bamboo poles the VC used to shore up their tunnels. The beam ran vertically, which meant he'd reached a junction or a room. Rooms had more air. He dug faster, pulling earth away from the sides of the beam. His shoulders burned. The confined space meant he couldn't get any leverage, couldn't use his body weight, just his arms over and over, scooping and pulling. The beam shifted slightly. Tom froze. A low groan came from somewhere above him, the sound of earth under stress. Dirt trickled onto his neck. He held his breath, waiting to be crushed, waiting for the final collapse that would end this. The groaning stopped. The trickling stopped. He was still alive. Tom started digging again, more carefully this time. The beam was wedged between collapsed sections, probably the only thing keeping tons of earth from filling this space completely. He needed to work around it, not disturb it. His left hand broke through into empty space. Air hit his fingers, moving air, and Tom almost sobbed with relief. He widened the hole, pulling dirt back, creating an opening big enough for his arm. Then his shoulder. The space beyond felt larger, maybe big enough to turn around in. Tom squeezed forward, his ribs scraping against the sides of the passage. For a terrible moment he was stuck, unable to move forward or back, and the panic came screaming back. He forced it down, exhaled completely, making himself smaller, pulled with his arms, pushed with his toes. He slid through into the larger space beyond. Tom lay there gasping, his chest heaving. The air here was better, not good, but better. He could sit up. He tested it slowly, raising his torso, feeling dirt brush the top of his head, but not pressed down. A chamber, maybe 5 feet across. He fumbled in his pocket for the lighter. His hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to work the striker. The flame caught, and Tom held it up. The tiny circle of light revealed a VC supply room. Rice bags stacked against one wall, ammunition crates, a canteen hanging from a peg, and 3 dark openings leading away into tunnels. 3 choices. 1 might lead to the surface. 2 might lead to his grave. Tom let the lighter go out, saving the fuel. He'd seen what he needed to see. The canteen called to him first. He grabbed it, unscrewed the cap, and sniffed. Water. Maybe 2 days old, maybe a week, but water. He took a careful sip, just enough to wet his mouth, wash away some of the dust coating his throat. His body screamed for more, but he capped it. No telling how long he'd need it to last. The rice bags were useless to him now, the ammunition even more so. But against the far wall, his searching hands found something better. A small oil lamp, the kind the VC used for light in the deeper tunnels. He shook it gently. Still had oil. Next to it, a box of matches wrapped in oilcloth. Tom lit the lamp, adjusting the wick until it gave off a steady yellow glow. The light hurt his eyes after the complete darkness, but it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Now he could see the chamber properly. The ceiling was lower than he'd thought, maybe 4 feet at the highest point. The walls showed chisel marks, hand-carved over weeks or months. The 3 tunnel openings were each about 2 feet in diameter. Small, even for him. He moved to the first opening on his left, holding the lamp inside. The tunnel sloped down, disappearing into darkness after 10 feet. Down was bad. Down meant moving away from the surface, deeper into the earth. The middle tunnel ran straight and level. Tom could see maybe 15 feet before it curved. No way to know where it led without crawling in. It could branch into a dozen more passages, become a maze he'd never escape. The right tunnel angled upward. Tom checked each opening again, feeling for air movement. The left tunnel exhaled cool, stale air. Dead air. The middle tunnel had no movement at all, but the right tunnel, the one going up, had the faintest breath of air moving through it. Not fresh air exactly, but moving air. Air that was going somewhere. He thought about the layout of the tunnel system, tried to remember his entry point, the direction he'd been crawling. If he'd come in from the southwest and been heading northeast, then this chamber was probably 30 feet from the entrance. The right tunnel, if it continued upward and north, might break surface in the rice paddy. Might. Maybe. He was guessing based on feel and instinct, and if he was wrong, he'd be crawling deeper into a system that could stretch for miles. Tom looked at the other 2 tunnels one more time. Then he gathered what he needed. The canteen, the lamp, the matches. He left his helmet behind. Where he was going, the extra weight would cost more than the protection was worth. He crawled to the right tunnel, the one sloping up. Before entering, he scratched an arrow in the dirt floor, pointing back to this chamber. If he had to retreat, he'd need to find his way back. Tom took a long drink from the canteen, then began to crawl upward into the unknown. The upward tunnel was tighter than the others. Tom's shoulders scraped both sides as he crawled, the lamp held awkwardly in front of him. Every few feet he stopped to listen, ears straining for any sound that might indicate he was moving toward the surface. Voices, equipment, anything. He heard nothing but his own breathing in the scrape of his body against earth. The tunnel curved left after 20 feet, then right again. Tom marked each turn by scratching the wall with his knife, creating a trail he could follow back if needed. The air was slightly better here, less thick, and he took that as a good sign. Then the tunnel branched into two paths. Tom held the lamp up to each opening. The left branch looked newer, the walls less worn. The right branch showed more traffic, dirt packed smooth by countless bodies crawling through. In tunnel warfare, traffic meant routes to the surface. Unused tunnels were often dead ends or traps. He chose right and kept crawling. The upward tunnel was tighter than the others. Tom's shoulders scraped both sides as he crawled. The lamp held awkwardly in front of him. Every few feet he stopped to listen, ears straining for any sound that might indicate he was moving toward the surface. Voices, equipment, anything. He heard nothing but his own breathing and the scrape of his body against earth. The tunnel curved left after 20 feet, then right again. Tom marked each turn by scratching the wall with his knife, creating a trail he could follow back if needed. The air was slightly better here, less thick, and he took that as a good sign. Then the tunnel branched into two paths. Tom held the lamp up to each opening. The left branch looked newer, the walls less worn. The right branch showed more traffic, dirt packed smooth by countless bodies crawling through. In tunnel warfare, traffic meant routes to the surface. Unused tunnels were often dead ends or traps. He chose right and kept crawling. The angle steepened. Tom had to dig his toes in, pushing himself upward inch by inch. His arms burned from holding the lamp and pulling his body weight. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with dirt, stinging his eyes. The canteen banged against his hip with each movement. After 30 feet of climbing, the tunnel leveled out again. Tom paused to catch his breath, setting the lamp down carefully. His hands were shaking from exertion. He took another small sip of water, forcing himself to stop at just one sip. A sound froze him. Voices, faint but unmistakable. Vietnamese voices somewhere ahead. Tom's hand went to his pistol. The VC used these tunnels constantly, moving supplies, hiding from airstrikes, setting up ambush positions. If he crawled into an occupied section, they'd kill him before he could explain he was just trying to get out. He extinguished the lamp, plunging himself back into darkness. Better to be blind than dead, the voices continued, too muffled to make out words. 2 people, maybe 3. They sounded casual, not alarmed. They didn't know he was here. Tom waited in the darkness, counting his breaths again. 100 breaths, 200. The voices faded, moving away or stopping altogether. He counted another 100 breaths for good measure. When he relit the lamp, his hands were steadier. Fear did that sometimes, sharpen you when panic would have dulled you. He'd learned that in his first tunnel 6 months ago, when he'd come face to face with a VC soldier in a passage just like this one. The soldier had been as surprised as Tom. They'd stared at each other for a frozen second before both scrambled backward, neither wanting to fight in a space where bullets would ricochet off walls and kill everyone. Tom kept moving forward, but slower now, stopping every few feet to listen. The tunnel ahead showed more use, the walls reinforced with bamboo supports. He was definitely in an active section of the network. The tunnel opened into another chamber, this one larger than the supply room. Tom extinguished his lamp again before entering, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. A faint glow came from somewhere to his left. Lamplight, flickering against earthen walls. He crawled forward slowly, silently, until he could see into the chamber. 3 VC soldiers sat around a small lamp, eating rice from metal bowls. Their AK-47s leaned against the wall within easy reach. They were young, maybe 20 years old, talking quietly in Vietnamese. One of them laughed at something another said. Tom backed away carefully, retreating 10 feet down the tunnel. His heart hammered against his ribs. He couldn't go through that chamber. But the tunnel he was in dead-ended at the chamber entrance. No way forward except through occupied enemy territory. He sat in the darkness, thinking. The VC would finish their meal eventually and move on. He could wait them out. But how long? An hour? 6 hours? And what if more soldiers arrived? What if this was a barracks chamber where they slept? His air was getting thin again. He could feel it in the way his head felt light, the way his thoughts seemed to drift. Carbon dioxide was building up in his blood, slowly poisoning him. He needed to move, needed to find better air. Tom crawled back to the chamber entrance and watched. The soldiers were packing up their meal now, putting bowls into packs. They stood, shouldered their rifles, and moved toward a tunnel on the far side of the chamber. The opposite direction from Tom. He waited until their lamp glow faded completely. Then he waited longer, counting to 500. His lungs burned, his head pounded, but he waited. Finally, Tom relit his lamp and entered the chamber. It was roughly circular, maybe 8 feet across. 5 tunnel openings led away from it like spokes on a wheel. The VC had taken the tunnel directly across from where Tom entered. That left 4 choices. He moved to each opening, feeling for air current. The first 2 had no movement. The third exhaled stale air. But the fourth, the one angling sharply upward, had fresh air flowing down into it. Real fresh air, the kind that came from the surface. Tom marked his entry tunnel with 3 scratches, then started up the 4th passage. This tunnel was the steepest yet, nearly 45 degrees. He had to wedge himself between the walls and inch upward. The lamp clenched between his teeth. The metal grew hot against his lips, but he couldn't put it down. If he dropped it here, it would tumble back down the slope, and he'd be climbing in darkness. His arms gave out after 20 feet. Tom braced himself against the walls, legs trembling from the strain. He couldn't stop here. If his strength failed, he'd slide all the way back down. He pushed upward. Another foot. Another. The air grew cooler, fresher. He could smell it now. That distinct smell of the jungle. Vegetation and rain and life. Tom's hand broke through into open space above. He pulled himself up and through, emerging into what he first thought was another chamber. But this space felt different, bigger, and the air moved freely, carrying scents from above. Tom set the lamp down and stood up fully for the first time in hours. His back cracked, muscles screaming in protest. The lamplight revealed a vertical shaft, maybe 4 feet in diameter, stretching upward into darkness. Bamboo rungs were embedded in the wall, forming a crude ladder. This was an escape shaft, one of dozens the VC built into their tunnel networks. A way to reach the surface quickly when American troops pumped gas or smoke into the tunnels below. Tom looked up, holding the lamp high. He couldn't see the top. 20 feet. 30. No way to know without climbing. He tested the first rung. It held. The second rung flexed slightly under his weight but didn't break. These ladders were built for smaller Vietnamese fighters, not American soldiers. Even at 5'6" and 140 pounds, Tom was pushing the limits. He hooked the lamp handle onto his belt and started climbing, hand over hand testing each rung before trusting it with his full weight. His arms felt like lead. Every pull upward took effort he wasn't sure he had left. At the 10th rung, he heard voices again. Above him this time. Vietnamese. Close. Tom froze on the ladder, looking up. Lamplight flickered somewhere overhead. The voices grew louder. Someone was coming down. He had maybe 30 seconds before whoever it was would see him. Going back down would take too long. Going up meant confronting armed soldiers with nothing but a pistol and exhausted muscles. Tom made his choice. He extinguished his lamp and pressed himself against the shaft wall, wrapping his arms and legs around the bamboo ladder, making himself as small as possible. The shaft was narrow enough that in darkness, someone climbing quickly might not notice him. Might. The lamplight grew brighter. A figure appeared above, descending rapidly. A young VC soldier, carrying a rifle across his back, moving with the easy confidence of someone who'd climbed this ladder 1,000 times. Tom held his breath. The soldier was 5 rungs above him. 4 rungs. 3. The soldier's foot touched the rung directly above Tom's head. Tom could see the worn sole of his sandal, smell the smoke from his clothing. Another step, and the soldier's foot would land on Tom's hand. The soldier stopped. He said something in Vietnamese, calling down to someone below. A response echoed up from the tunnels. The soldier laughed and continued his descent, swinging past Tom so quickly he was just a blur in the lamplight. Tom waited until the glow disappeared into the tunnel below. Then he climbed, moving faster now, no longer caring about noise. His hands found the top rung, then earth, then roots. He pulled himself up into a small covered pit, maybe 3 feet deep. Above him, woven bamboo covered the opening, designed to be invisible from the surface. Daylight filtered through the gaps. Tom pushed the cover aside and looked out at the jungle. He lay still in the pit, listening. Voices carried through the jungle, American voices this time, speaking English. His platoon was out there searching. Tom wanted to shout, to climb out immediately, but training held him back. He needed to see where he was first, make sure he wasn't emerging into a VC position. Slowly, he raised his head above ground level. The jungle stretched in every direction, thick vegetation blocking his view beyond 30 feet. He couldn't see his platoon, couldn't see anything but trees and undergrowth. The voices had stopped. Maybe they'd moved on. Maybe he'd imagined them in his oxygen-starved desperation. Tom pulled himself out of the pit completely, staying low. His legs barely supported his weight. He'd been underground for hours, crawling, climbing, fighting for every foot of progress. Now his body was done, running on nothing but will. This story takes time to craft. If you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. He lay still in the pit, listening. Voices carried through the jungle, American voices this time, speaking English. His platoon was out there searching. Tom wanted to shout, to climb out immediately, but training held him back. He needed to see where he was first, make sure he wasn't emerging into a VC position. Slowly, he raised his head above ground level. The jungle stretched in every direction, thick vegetation blocking his view beyond 30 feet. He couldn't see his platoon, couldn't see anything but trees and undergrowth. The voices had stopped. Maybe they'd moved on. Maybe he'd imagined them in his oxygen-starved desperation. Tom pulled himself out of the pit completely, staying low. His legs barely supported his weight. He'd been underground for hours, crawling, climbing, fighting for every foot of progress. Now his body was done, running on nothing but will. He oriented himself by the sun, visible through breaks in the canopy. Late afternoon, shadows growing long. If the collapse had happened around 8 in the morning, he'd been buried for 9 hours. 9 hours that felt like 9 days. The original tunnel entrance was southwest of here. Tom turned that direction and started moving through the undergrowth, staying low, making as little noise as possible. Every 20 yards, he stopped to listen. The jungle was never quiet. Birds called, insects buzzed. Somewhere distant, a monkey shrieked, but no human sounds, no voices, no movement. Tom found a game trail and followed it, hoping it would lead him back toward familiar ground. His canteen was empty now. He'd finished the last of the water during his climb up the shaft. Thirst scratched at his throat, but he pushed it aside. First, get back to the platoon, then water, then rest. The trail curved around a massive teak tree and opened into a small clearing. Tom stopped at the edge, scanning for threats. The clearing looked empty, just grass and a few scattered rocks. Then he saw the boot. An American jungle boot, attached to a leg, attached to a body lying face down in the grass. Tom's heart stopped. He recognized those boots. He'd seen them that morning during the briefing. Kowalski. Tom ran to him, forgetting caution, forgetting everything except that his friend was lying motionless in the dirt. He rolled Kowalski over and nearly cried with relief. His chest was moving, breathing, alive. Ski, hey, Ski. Tom shook his shoulder gently. No response. He checked for wounds, running his hands over Kowalski's body. No blood, no obvious injuries, but his skin felt hot, feverish. Kowalski's eyes fluttered open. They were unfocused, glassy. Mole! His voice was barely a whisper. "You're dead. I saw you die." "I'm not dead. Neither are you. Where's the platoon?" "Gone. Had to pull back. VC everywhere." Kowalski's words slurred together. "Waited for you. Waited too long. Got hit. Leg." Tom looked down. Kowalski's right leg was wrapped in a makeshift bandage, already soaked through with blood. A punji stake wound, probably. The bamboo spikes the VC planted in the jungle, often coated with poison or feces to cause infection. Tom unwrapped the bandage carefully. The wound was bad, a deep puncture just above Kowalski's ankle. The flesh around it was already swollen, red streaks running up toward his knee. Blood poisoning, infection spreading fast through his system. How long ago did this happen? 4 hours, maybe 5. Kowalski's teeth chattered despite the jungle heat. Radios busted. Tried to make it back. Couldn't walk. Tom looked around the clearing. No radio meant no way to call for extraction, no way to signal their position. They were on their own, miles from the fire base, in hostile territory with night coming fast. "Can you stand?" "Can't feel my leg anymore." Kowalski tried to sit up and collapsed back. "Leave me. Get yourself out." "Not happening." Tom pulled Kowalski's arm over his shoulder and hauled him upright. His friend weighed maybe 170, all of it dead weight. Tom's legs nearly buckled. He'd just crawled through miles of collapsed tunnel on the edge of suffocation, and now he had to carry a full-grown man through the jungle. "You're crazy, Mole. You'll die too." "Then we die together. Now shut up and help me as much as you can." They started moving, Tom half carrying, half dragging Kowalski toward where he hoped the firebase lay. Every step was agony. His muscles screamed. His vision blurred, but he kept moving because the alternative was leaving Kowalski to die, and that wasn't an option. They made it 50 yards before Tom had to stop. He lowered Kowalski against a tree trunk, gasping for air. His hands were shaking again, this time from exhaustion, not fear. "There's a stream." Kowalski pointed weakly east. "Found it this morning, maybe 100 yards. Water." They both needed water desperately. Tom helped Kowalski to his feet again and changed direction. 100 yards might as well have been 100 miles, but they moved. The sound of running water reached them first. Then Tom saw it through the trees, a narrow stream cutting through the jungle, maybe 3 feet wide. He got Kowalski to the bank and they both drank, cupping the water in their hands, not caring if it was safe. Thirst won over caution. Tom refilled his canteen, then examined Kowalski's wound again in better light. The infection was worse than he'd thought. Without antibiotics, Kowalski would be dead by morning. They needed a medic. They needed evacuation. They needed help. Tom heard movement in the jungle behind them. He grabbed his pistol, turning toward the sound. Kowalski tried to raise his rifle but couldn't manage the weight. They were in no condition to fight. If this was a VC patrol, they were finished. Morrison stepped out of the undergrowth, followed by 3 other soldiers from their platoon. The lieutenant's eyes went wide when he saw them. "Delaney, holy hell, we thought you were buried." Morrison keyed his radio. "This is Alpha 2-6. I've got Delaney and Kowalski. Need immediate dust-off. Kowalski's critical." Tom sat down hard, his legs finally giving out completely. "Good timing, sir." Morrison crouched beside them while his medic worked on Kowalski's leg. "What happened down there?" "The whole tunnel system collapsed. We tried digging you out, but the VC hit us hard. Had to pull back. B-52 strike caused it. I was 20 feet in when it came down." Tom drank more water from his canteen. Dug through to a supply chamber. Found 3 tunnels leading out. Took the one going up. "You dug through a cave-in." Morrison stared at him. "How long were you down there?" Tom checked his watch. The crystal was cracked, but it still worked. 9 hours, give or take." The medic looked up from Kowalski's leg. "This is septic, sir. He needs surgery. That dust-off better get here fast." Morrison nodded and spoke into his radio again, updating their status. Tom watched the medic work, watched him inject antibiotics into Kowalski's arm, watched him apply clean bandages. Professional, efficient, everything Tom wasn't anymore. He was just a guy who'd crawled through the earth and somehow come out the other side. "Found him in that clearing," Tom said. "He waited for me." "Yeah, he did." Morrison's voice was quiet. "Refused to leave until we forced him. Then he went back on his own. Stubborn son of a bitch. Kowalski managed a weak smile. Takes one to know one, sir. The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the jungle canopy. The dust-off was coming in fast, a Huey dropping through the trees into a clearing 200 yards away. Morrison's men helped carry Kowalski toward it, moving quickly but carefully. Tom tried to stand and his legs buckled again. Morrison caught him. You're going out too, Delaney. That's an order. I can walk, sir. No, you can't. And even if you could, you're done. 9 hours buried underground. You should be dead. Let's not push your luck. They reached the clearing as the Huey touched down, rotor wash flattening the grass, kicking up dust and debris. The crew chief jumped out and helped load Kowalski onto a stretcher. Tom climbed in under his own power, refusing help even though his body screamed for it. Morrison appeared at the door as they were lifting off. He had to shout over the engine noise. That's 48 tunnels now, Mole. You cleared 48. Tom shook his head. Didn't clear this one, sir. Just survived it. Same thing in my book. Morrison stepped back and saluted as the Huey lifted off. Tom watched the jungle fall away below them, saw the canopy spread out like a green ocean, saw the tunnel entrance marked by churned earth where the platoon had tried to dig him out. From up here it looked so small, harmless, just a hole in the ground. He thought about the darkness down there, the endless crawling, the choices he'd made at each junction, left or right, up or down. Any wrong turn would have killed him, but he'd made the right choices, or gotten lucky, or both. Kowalski's hand gripped his arm. Thanks, Mole. Tom nodded. He was too tired to speak, too tired to do anything but sit and breathe free air and watch the jungle pass below. They were going home, both of them. Against every odd, they were going home. The medic worked on Tom during the flight, checking his vitals, shining a light in his eyes. You're dehydrated, probably mild oxygen deprivation. How's your breathing? Better now. Tom's voice came out raspy, his throat raw from dust and thin air. You're lucky to be alive. Most guys trapped like that, they panic, use up their air faster. The medic wrapped a blood pressure cuff around Tom's arm. What kept you calm down there? Tom thought about it. Counting. My dad taught me to count when I was scared of the dark. The medic worked on Tom during the flight, checking his vitals, shining a light in his eyes. You're dehydrated, probably mild oxygen deprivation. How's your breathing? Better now? Tom's voice came out raspy, his throat raw from dust and thin air. You're lucky to be alive. Most guys trapped like that, they panic, use up their air faster. The medic wrapped a blood pressure cuff around Tom's arm. What kept you calm down there? Tom thought about it. Counting. My dad taught me to count when I was scared of the dark. The Huey banked hard, dropping altitude fast. Tom looked out and saw Firebase Henderson below, the perimeter wire catching afternoon sun. They touched down on the landing pad and corpsmen rushed forward with stretchers. They took Kowalski first, running him toward the medical tent. Tom climbed out on his own, waving off help. His legs held this time, barely. He walked across the fire base, aware of soldiers staring at him. Word had spread fast. The tunnel rat who'd been buried alive and crawled out. Captain Hayes intercepted him outside the command tent. Delaney, glad you're breathing. Thought we'd lost you. Almost did, sir. Get yourself checked out at medical. Then I want a full debrief. We need to know the tunnel layout, what you saw down there. Hayes paused. And Delaney, good work bringing Kowalski back. Not many men would have done that in your condition. Tom nodded and headed for the medical tent. Inside, doctors worked on Kowalski, prepping him for surgery. Tom found an empty cot and sat down. A nurse approached with an IV bag. You need fluids. And these. She handed him 2 pills. Antibiotics. You were breathing contaminated air for hours. Your lungs are probably full of bacteria. Tom swallowed the pills and let her insert the IV. The cool saline flowing into his veins felt like life itself. He lay back on the cot, closing his eyes for just a moment. He woke 6 hours later to darkness. Someone had covered him with a blanket. The tent was quiet except for the beep of monitors and the occasional moan from wounded soldiers. Tom's body felt like it had been beaten with hammers. Every muscle ached. His hands were wrapped in bandages, his fingernails either broken or torn off from digging. He sat up slowly. Across the tent, he saw Kowalski in a bed, leg elevated, asleep, still alive. Tom stood and walked outside. Night had fallen over the firebase. Stars filled the sky, more stars than he'd ever seen in Pittsburgh. He breathed the night air, tasting it, feeling it fill his lungs completely. No dust, no earth, just air. A soldier walked past, nodded at him. "You're the mole, right? Heard what you did. That's some crazy shit, man." Tom didn't respond. He just stood there, breathing and looking at the stars, thinking about the darkness underground, about every choice that had kept him alive. Left or right, up or down, dig or wait, fight or hide. He'd made 48 trips into VC tunnels. He'd faced 48 different hells. But this one, this ninth hour buried in the earth, this was the one he'd remember forever. Captain Hayes found him 20 minutes later, still standing outside the medical tent. "Delaney, you should be resting." "Can't sleep, sir." Hayes lit a cigarette, offered one to Tom. He took it, his first cigarette in months. The smoke burned his damaged lungs, but he didn't care. It was something to do with his hands. "I read the preliminary medical report," Hayes said. "You've got chemical burns in your lungs from bad air, severe dehydration, torn muscles in your shoulders and back, 18 broken or missing fingernails." He took a drag. "And you still carried Kowalski half a mile through hostile jungle." "He waited for me. Couldn't leave him." "No, you couldn't." Hayes studied him. "I'm pulling you off tunnel duty, effective immediately." Tom felt something twist in his chest. Relief, maybe. Or loss. "Sir, you can still do a lot of things. Tunnel rat isn't one of them anymore. Your hands need months to heal. Your lungs are compromised. And frankly, I think you've earned a break from crawling through hell." Tom nodded slowly. Part of him wanted to argue, to prove he could still do the job. But a larger part, the part that had spent 9 hours in suffocating darkness, felt grateful. "What happens now?" "You go home." Hayes dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. "Your tour's up in 6 weeks anyway. I'm recommending early rotation. You'll be on a plane to California within the week." Home. The word felt foreign. Tom had been in Vietnam for 14 months. He'd forgotten what home felt like, what it meant to walk on streets instead of jungle trails, to sleep without expecting mortars. "What about Kowalski?" "He'll follow in a few weeks once he's stable enough to travel. Lost the leg below the knee, but he's alive because of you." Hayes turned to go, then stopped. "One more thing. I'm putting you in for a Bronze Star. What you did down there, and what you did after, that's the kind of courage that deserves recognition." Tom didn't know what to say to that. He'd just done what needed doing, survived, kept moving forward, brought his friend home. After Hayes left, Tom walked the perimeter of the firebase. Guards nodded as he passed. Some called out, congratulating him on surviving. News traveled fast in a place like this. By morning, every man on the base would know the story. He found himself at the edge of the firebase, looking out at the dark jungle. Somewhere out there, the tunnel system still existed. Chambers and passages and escape shafts, all connected in a network that stretched for miles. He'd seen maybe a fraction of it, just enough to stay alive. Tom thought about the VC soldiers he'd seen underground, the ones eating rice, the one who'd climbed past him on the ladder. They'd been so close. In different circumstances, they would have killed each other. But in that darkness, in those narrow passages, they'd just been men trying to survive. He turned away from the jungle and walked back to the medical tent. This time, when he lay down on the cot, sleep came quickly. The nightmares started that night. Tom found himself back in the tunnel, crawling through darkness that pressed against him like concrete. The walls moved closer with each breath. He couldn't turn around, couldn't go forward, just stuck, buried alive, the air running out second by second. He woke gasping, his shirt soaked with sweat. The medical tent's dim lights brought him back to reality. He wasn't underground, he was safe, but his heart still hammered like he was drowning in earth. A medic approached. "Happens to most guys who go through what you did. The dreams. They'll fade eventually." Tom nodded, not believing it. He lay back down but didn't sleep, just stared at the tent ceiling until dawn broke. Morning brought Captain Hayes with orders. Tom was officially off the duty roster. He'd spend the next 5 days at the fire base doing light work while his paperwork processed. Then a flight to Saigon. Then home. 5 days felt like 5 years. Tom spent them helping in the supply depot, moving boxes, taking inventory. Simple work that didn't require crawling or fighting or making life or death choices. His hands healed slowly, new skin growing over torn nail beds. His lungs still burned when he breathed deep, but the antibiotics were working. On the 3rd day, Kowalski woke up lucid for the first time since surgery. Tom sat with him, neither man saying much. Some things didn't need words. "They're sending me home," Kowalski said finally. "Gonna have to learn to walk again with a prosthetic." "You'll manage. You're stubborn enough." "Yeah." Kowalski laughed, then winced. "Hurts to laugh. Everything hurts." He looked at Tom. "You saved my life down there, in that jungle. I was done, ready to quit. You would have done the same." "Maybe, but you actually did it." Kowalski closed his eyes. "I keep thinking about you buried in that tunnel. 9 hours. How the hell did you not lose your mind?" Tom thought about it. Kept moving. Every time I wanted to stop, wanted to give up, I just moved forward 1 more foot, then 1 more after that. Didn't think about the end, just the next foot. 1 foot at a time. "Yeah." They sat in silence after that. Outside, helicopters landed and took off, bringing in wounded, taking out the ones stable enough to travel. The war continued. It always continued. On the 5th day, Tom packed his duffel bag. Everything he owned fit in 1 bag. Spare uniforms, letters from home, a worn paperback novel he'd never finished, the lighter Kowalski had loaned him, which he planned to return before leaving. He found Kowalski asleep and left the lighter on the table beside his bed with a note. "Told you I'd bring it back. Mole." The Huey that would take him to Saigon landed at noon. Tom climbed aboard with a dozen other soldiers rotating home. As they lifted off, he looked down at Firebase Henderson, at the medical tent where Kowalski was recovering, at the perimeter wire and the jungle beyond. Somewhere out there, the tunnel entrance still existed, collapsed now, sealed with earth, but still there, his grave that had failed to keep him. Tom turned away from the window as the firebase disappeared behind them. The soldier next to him, a kid maybe 19 years old, fresh from his first firefight, spoke up. "You're the tunnel guy, right? The one who got buried." "Yeah." "What was it like, down there in the dark?" Tom considered the question. "Like drowning in dirt, but slower." The kid nodded, processing that, then went quiet. "Some things you couldn't explain to someone who hadn't lived them." Tom turned away from the window as the firebase disappeared behind them. The soldier next to him, a kid maybe 19 years old, fresh from his first firefight, spoke up. "You're the tunnel guy, right? The one who got buried." "Yeah." "What was it like, down there in the dark?" Tom considered the question. "Like drowning in dirt, but slower." The kid nodded, processing that, then went quiet. "Some things you couldn't explain to someone who hadn't lived them." Saigon was chaos. The processing center was packed with soldiers rotating home, officers shouting orders, clerks typing discharge papers. Tom stood in line for 3 hours just to get his paperwork stamped, then another 2 hours for his travel orders. By the time he finished, night had fallen over the city. They put him up in a transit barracks, a long building with rows of bunks filled with men waiting for flights home. Tom found an empty bunk and lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. The barracks was too loud, too many voices, too much light. After 14 months in the jungle where noise meant danger, the normal sounds of men talking and laughing set his nerves on edge. He went outside and sat on the steps, smoking a cigarette he'd bummed from another soldier. The city sprawled before him, lights and traffic and life continuing, like there wasn't a war 20 miles away. Strange how that worked. People eating dinner, going to movies, living normal lives while men died in the jungle. "Delaney?" Tom turned. Morrison stood behind him, also in transit, also waiting for a flight home. The lieutenant looked different in clean fatigues, cleaned up, almost like a normal person instead of a combat officer. "Sir, didn't expect to see you here. Tour ended yesterday. Caught the last Huey out of Henderson. Morrison sat down beside him. Heard you're heading home too. Day after tomorrow. Got a flight to California. They sat in silence for a while, watching Saigon's lights. Finally, Morrison spoke. I wrote your medal recommendation. Bronze Star with Valor. Command approved it. You'll receive it stateside. Wasn't looking for a medal, sir. Nobody ever is. But you earned it. Morrison pulled out a flask and took a drink, then offered it to Tom. Whiskey, probably contraband. Tom took a sip. It burned to going down, but it was a good burn. What are you going to do when you get home? Morrison asked. Tom thought about it. My dad runs a machine shop in Pittsburgh. Figured I'd work there. Learn the trade. Maybe open my own place someday. Sounds peaceful. That's the idea, Morrison laughed. Peace. Hell, I don't even remember what that feels like. He took another drink. You did good work out there, Delaney. Best tunnel rat I ever saw. You've got nothing to prove to anyone, you understand? Not to the Army, not to yourself. You went into 48 tunnels and came out of 48 tunnels. That's more than most men could say. The last one almost kept me. But it didn't. That's what matters. They finished the flask together, two soldiers who'd survived hell talking about nothing important. Sports, weather, the price of beer back home, anything except the war, except the tunnels, except the men who hadn't made it home. Morrison left around midnight. Tom went back to his bunk, and this time sleep came, dreamless and deep. The flight home left at 0600, a C-130 cargo plane packed with soldiers, all of them heading to Travis Air Force Base in California. Tom found a seat near the rear and strapped in. The engines roared to life. The plane taxied, picked up speed, and lifted off. Vietnam disappeared below them. Tom watched through a small window as the coastline faded, replaced by open ocean. 14 months of his life, reduced to a shrinking landmass behind them. He felt nothing. Not relief, not joy, not sadness. Just emptiness where emotions should have been. The soldier across from him, an artillery specialist named Chen, caught his eye. First time going home. Yeah, it's weird. Everything's different, but also the same. People ask questions, but they don't really want answers. Chen shrugged. Just warning you, it's not what you expect. Tom nodded. He hadn't thought much about what to expect. He'd been too focused on surviving to think about what came after survival. The flight took 18 hours with refueling stops. Tom slept through most of it, waking only when turbulence rattled the plane or when they landed to take on fuel. Each time he woke, his hand went automatically to where his pistol should have been, but his weapon was gone, turned in at processing. He was just a civilian now, flying home. Travis Air Force Base appeared below them as the sun rose over California. Green hills, highways, civilization. The plane touched down smooth and rolled to a stop. The rear ramp lowered and warm California air rushed in. Tom walked down the ramp onto American soil for the first time in over a year. A small crowd waited at the terminal, families mostly, holding signs, searching for faces. Tom had told his parents not to come. The flight schedule was uncertain, and he didn't want them waiting for days. He'd take a bus to the airport, then a commercial flight to Pittsburgh, home by tomorrow night. Processing at Travis took 4 hours. Medical check, final paperwork, discharge orders. They gave him his service record in a manila envelope and a bus voucher. That was it. 14 months of war reduced to paper in an envelope. Tom caught the bus to San Francisco International. He sat in the back, watching California pass by the window. So many cars, so many people. Everyone moving fast, going places, living lives that had nothing to do with war. At the airport, he bought a ticket for the next flight to Pittsburgh. 6-hour layover. He found a quiet corner and sat down with a cup of coffee, the first real coffee he'd had in months. A woman walked past, saw his uniform, smiled. "Welcome home, soldier." Tom nodded his thanks but didn't speak. "Welcome home." The words felt hollow. He wasn't home yet, wouldn't be home until he saw his parents, his old room, the streets he'd grown up on. The flight to Pittsburgh left at 8 p.m. Tom sat in a window seat, watching the lights of cities pass below. Somewhere down there, people were having dinner, watching television, complaining about traffic, normal problems, normal lives. He thought about Kowalski still in the hospital, learning to walk with one leg, about Morrison probably landing in North Carolina around now, heading home to a wife he hadn't seen in a year, about the men still at Firebase Henderson, still going out on patrols, still clearing tunnels. The plane landed at Pittsburgh International at 2 in the morning. Tom grabbed his duffel and walked through the terminal. It was nearly empty at this hour, just a few janitors and late-night travelers. His father waited outside baggage claim. John Delaney stood exactly as Tom remembered him. 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, work-worn hands, gray hair cut military short from his own time in Korea. He didn't run forward or shout, just stood there, solid and real. Tom walked up to him. They stared at each other for a moment. Then his father pulled him into a hug, and Tom felt something crack inside his chest. All the fear he'd buried, all the exhaustion he'd ignored, all the nights spent crawling through darkness came rushing back. "You're home," his father said. "You're really home." Tom couldn't speak, just nodded against his father's shoulder. They drove through empty Pittsburgh streets toward the house Tom had grown up in. His father didn't ask questions, didn't push for stories, just drove and let Tom sit in silence, watching familiar landmarks pass by. The steel mill where his father worked, the diner where Tom had flipped burgers in high school, the bridge over the river. Home was a small house in a working-class neighborhood. The porch light was on. His mother waited at the door, and when she saw him, she started crying. Tom hugged her, this small woman who'd raised him, who'd sent him care packages every month, who'd waited 14 months for him to come home. "You're so thin," she said, touching his face. "And these hands. Tommy, what happened to your hands?" "I'm okay, Mom, just need to heal." She fed him despite the late hour. Homemade soup, fresh bread, apple pie. Tom ate slowly, tasting real food for the first time in forever. His parents sat with him at the kitchen table, not asking about the war, just being there. Later in his old room, Tom lay in his childhood bed and stared at the ceiling. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. Baseball trophies on the shelf, high school diploma on the wall, model planes hanging from fishing line. But he wasn't the same person who'd left this room. That kid was gone, buried somewhere in the tunnels of Kuchai. Tom closed his eyes, and for the first time in 9 days, he didn't dream about being buried. He dreamed about light breaking through soil, about climbing up into fresh air, about the moment his hand had broken through to the surface and felt the sun. He dreamed about surviving. Morning came with the smell of coffee and bacon. Tom woke to sunlight streaming through his window, real sunlight in a safe room. His mother called up the stairs that breakfast was ready. He dressed slowly, his bandaged hands still clumsy with buttons. Downstairs, his father read the newspaper, like he did every morning. His mother set plates on the table. Normal. Everything achingly normal. Tom sat down and his father looked at him over the paper. "The shop could use help when you're ready. No pressure, whenever you're ready." Tom nodded. "Maybe next week. Need a few days to remember how things work here." "Take all the time you need, son." If this story meant something to you, drop a comment and share it. It helps the next person find their way here.